Nintendo has revealed a new Nintendo Switch Lite color. They call it blue, I think it's more purple, but more interestingly, it's launching in Europe before the rest of the world. What's up with that? There are a couple of reasons for it, so we'll go through that in this video, on top of also all the new games that Nintendo revealed during their Indie World presentation. So be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the Commonwealth Realm if you haven't already, and press that notification bell. And let's get into these reveals. Starting with Nintendo Switch Lite Blue, which is the latest inclusion in the Nintendo Switch Lite family, or palettes of colors if you prefer. It will be a standard available, so there's no need to rush and get it on launch day, which will differ between Europe and the rest of the world, since in Europe it will be launching on May 7th, while in the rest of the world they are waiting to launch it the same day and date as Miitopia, the make-your-own Mii RPG adventure game, which has been ported or recreated in many ways from the 3DS to the Nintendo Switch. And the launch of this Nintendo Switch Lite color on this particular day outside of Europe is actually very fitting when we look at the history of the Nintendo Switch Lite and its different color variations, because the Nintendo Switch Lite launched on September 20th, 2019 alongside with The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening remake. And what is so special about Link's Awakening? It was the first handheld Zelda game. And since the launch of 3D Zelda games, the top-down 2D Zeldas have found their home on Nintendo handhelds, starting with the Game Boy, then the Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, and finally Nintendo 3DS. So it makes sense that this Nintendo Switch Lite, which obviously doesn't switch and is not dockable, would be home to these type of games, and also that special bundles to these games would come for the launches of these games. We saw that with obviously Link's Awakening, we saw that with Pokemon Sword and Shield, Pokemon being a handheld franchise until the Nintendo Switch, and the same goes with now Miitopia. So it makes sense the way they are launching these color variations, also why we had the regular Switch Animal Crossing bundle, Mario bundles, and of course Monster Hunter Rise, as these franchises have a history on Nintendo home consoles. So what do I think about all of this? I'm gonna point it out straight out that I don't like when particular Switch models or games are launching in one region before the other, even though it's advantageous this time for me in Europe. In other words, I don't like this division of launch dates between Europe and the rest of the world, or America and Europe as we've seen in the past. So there you have that. $199 makes sense also to have this many color variations, because it's a cheaper Switch which does less, but it has one specific purpose. It's meant for handheld play. So the battery life has been adjusted to that, and the same goes with the size, sturdiness, and so on. And it also goes in line with a tradition of Nintendo handhelds, since Nintendo started with plain grey, but then with Game Boy Color they obviously used the name of the Game Boy Color itself to add many different color variations, and this tradition was continued then on the Game Boy Advance, on the Nintendo DS, and especially the DSi afterwards. And then finally on the 3DS, which had so many Zelda variations, Pokemon, Mario, and so on, that it's hard to count. And people were simply just collecting these because they were cheaper than regular Nintendo consoles, say from $200 to $150, which makes sense in this regard. And the way I see all of this is that this is going probably to be the last Nintendo Switch Lite model that we see until the reveal of the long-rumored and reported Nintendo Switch Pro. We have already had two basic Switch bundles so far this year, the Mario 35th anniversary and the Monster Hunter Rise one. Now we're getting this. Then we have the Skyward Sword HD Joy-Cons, purple Master Sword and blue Hylian Shield. And those seems to be the final ones before we're going to see the reveal and later launch of this new top model Nintendo Switch. So they want to get people to buy the basic Switch now and then buy again when the Nintendo Switch Pro comes out. And that's also why I am waiting and not buying also this version coming out on May 7th in Norway where I live, and May 21st around the world. Now for the rest of this video, let's just go over all the games that were revealed in the indie world in April, because it seems that this could actually be the last big Nintendo presentation until E3, where we know that Nintendo confirmed last week that they will be attending, both through the ESA itself and then through Doug Bowser, who retweeted the E3 tweet. So this indie world seems to be the last big presentation unless they will have something in May. But let's go over the games that have been revealed. A couple of them are actually already out, like The Longing, which is out. There's No Game is already out. The long-anticipated, actually, indie game Fez is also now out on the Nintendo Switch, so Fez is really good to pick up, since The Longing is a very, very long game, a total of 400 days, so real-time days, but you don't have to play through all of this, of course. So yeah, it might be a game for you, it might be not. You'll have to see. Beginning from May 19th, we have Never Yield, which is another game that is also looking quite promising. Chris Tales has finally a date. It's coming out on July 20th, so shortly after Skyward Sword HD, which is coming out on July 16th. We have Last Stop, which is coming out in July as well, and the same developer is also launching a different game called Hindsight, which is coming out later this year. Then we have a personal, very quirky and also cute little game called Kiwi, where you literally play as kiwis, pressing on keys and completing other kinds of challenges. So it's coming out in August, looks very adorable, and that month seems to be focused a lot on indie, or at least those type of experiences, since in August we also have No More Heroes 3, as it was confirmed back in the Nintendo Direct in February. Then we have Skull, the Hero Slayer, which is a game that looks very, very promising. It has a Japanese developer, and this entire roguelike style is very similar to the one we saw in Dead Cells, the same high pace, and we all know how great that experience was. And this game is coming out already in the summer of this year. That is actually quite interesting, because this entire indie world focused on games that are actually out already, that are coming soon in the next couple of months, later this year, like say summer, then fall, late in 2021, and even some games in 2022, and those are the games that we'll be focusing right now. And we're starting with a very promising Mexican-developed 3D indie game, Aztec, the Forgotten Gods. Taking place in the future, it combines Aztec and future elements into a very interesting 3D experience, and it's coming out already this fall. So this was one of the games that really caught my attention during this indie world. Then we have Ollie World, which is coming out later this year. As the name says itself, it's a skateboarding experience, so it'll be interesting to see how it performs, especially since we have already Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2, the remake, coming to the Nintendo Switch also later this year. Then we have a personal favorite of mine, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. This one has already been revealed before. We also talked about the game in our Nintendo Switch lineup video, and we didn't get any sort of confirmation in terms of dates and so on. It's just still coming just later this year, which is, the game is just classic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It literally is a spiritual successor to Turtles in Time, the SNES classic. So this is looking like a very promising game. Sadly, Hollow Knight Silksong is still not being shown. My personal prediction now is E3 that we're gonna see it. But there are other games that have luckily been revealed during this indie world, like Road 96, which is coming later this year. Also an interesting experience. And then we have a remake of House of the Dead, which is very surprising because it was just glossed over during the indie world, but it is actually a very big deal that this game is coming out and the remake is coming out on the Nintendo Switch. Sadly, no confirmation in terms of date yet, so we'll probably see this one also in future indie worlds and probably some other Nintendo presentations, or at least YouTube uploads on Nintendo's YouTube channel. Then we had the big announcement of the entire presentation and the last game also confirmed for 2021, that being Oxenfree 2: The Lost Signals. Oxenfree was an instant indie classic, a quality experience through and through, and Oxenfree 2: Lost Signals just looks like another indie gem that is going to be excellent whenever it launches this year. But the original Oxenfree was incredible, and even though we didn't see, say, Sports Story or Hollow Knight Silksong, this was a reveal of at least to a degree similar scale. But we also got a game to the Nintendo Switch lineup in 2022, which is Getsu Fumaten: Undying Moon, which is coming out in 2022 and is actually developed by Konami, so I have no idea why it was an indie world presentation, but there at least you have it. Plenty of new Nintendo Switch indie games coming to the Nintendo Switch already now, in a few months' time, later in 2021, and even in 2022. So be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the Commonwealth for more Nintendo Switch videos, and press the notification bell to not miss any of them, as more are on the way as we are building slowly but surely up to E3 and hopefully a reveal of a Nintendo Switch Pro. A big thanks as always goes to all our patreon.com/CommonRealm patrons, and in particular our royal producer Charles Shush. And also be sure to check out our new Discord server, The Realm. Link is in the description. Anyway, please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.